I'm going to show you a clip and I want to comment on it because it speaks to whether or not lockdown and the consequences of it are appropriate to the virus itself. So I'm just going to let you listen to the first clip and then I'm going to comment.
Are lockdowns the correct way to go?
You introduced me by saying that I would say that you got it all wrong. I don't think you got it all wrong, but you painted yourself into a corner, and I'm watching with interest how you and 100 other countries will climb out of the lockdown. Because I don't think any government that I know gave a minute's thought about how they would get out of the different lockdowns that are installed. Take a school closure, for example. If you close the schools, when are you going to open them? What's the criteria? I don't think anyone thought about that when the closure was decided on.
So what he's saying in the first clip is that it's not whether we lock down or not, it's how the heck do we get out of it? Because lockdown in the short term, perhaps to slow the curve so that medical services can be set up in order to deal with the virus or the patients with the virus might be appropriate. And I'm paraphrasing here. I'm actually not even paraphrasing, I'm interpreting what he's saying. But if you have an extended lockdown, how do you get out of it? What is the criteria? And that's the big issue. The next part of what he says is lockdown is whether you lock down or not, the results do not seem to be different around the world. The countries that have lockdown are not achieving better results than the countries that haven't locked down. Let's listen.
Now, Johan, you said that you think the results are going to be similar across most countries, regardless of the approach they've taken. Can you take us through that?
Seeing is a tsunami of a rather mild infection spreading around the globe. And I think there's very little chance to stop it by any measure we take. Most people will become infected by this, and most people won't even notice. We have data now from Sweden that shows that between 98 and 99% of the cases have had a very mild infection or didn't even realize they were infected. Wow. So we have this spread of this mild disease around the globe, and most of it is happening where we don't see it. It's among people that don't get very sick, spread it to someone else that doesn't get very sick. And what we're looking at is a thin layer at the top of people who do develop disease, an even thinner layer of people that go into intensive care, and an even thinner layer of people who die. But the real outbreak is happening where we don't see it.
So it's quite clear that lockdown in the short term may have some benefit, but to have it extended is not. Then the next thing that's brought up is, once we're rid of the lockdown, let's assume South Africa no longer has a single case of the coronavirus. What then?
Is it possible to do too good a job suppressing it in the early stages, such that then you don't ever wind up being able to take the foot off the brake, as it were, on your restrictions?
But you may succeed, and New Zealand may also succeed. But I've been asking myself, when New Zealand or Australia has stamped out every case in the country, what do you do for the next 30 years? Will you close your borders completely, quarantine for everyone who's going to Australia or New Zealand? Because the disease will be out there. I don't know how you're going to handle that, but that's your problem.
Okay, so that one has shown us that even if we get rid of every case, it doesn't free us because the virus is in the world to stay. So we'll either have to keep our borders closed, not allowing anybody out or anybody in, otherwise the virus will come back. And then he's going to move on to the next point in the next part of the clip that says, once you've released lockdown, what then?
But you think that at the end of the day, they're all pretty much going to end up with the same fatalities, the same results, the same deaths, regardless of what measures they took. Explain that.
Basically, I think that's the same. Because like I said, the real epidemic is invisible and it's going on all the time around us. The other thing with the lockdown is when you open it, you will have more cases. So the countries who pride themselves in having few deaths now will get these deaths when they start lifting the lockdown.
It's clear in what he's saying that there's no way to hide from this virus. It's going to infect nearly everybody. That we can't avoid. And out of the people that it affects, it's going to be it's a mild virus. So let's hear what he says about the actual percentages that are more realistic than what's been touted.
Now, you mentioned that the overwhelming majority of people who get this disease have no symptoms or very minimal symptoms. Do we even know the real fatality rate of coronavirus? And what is it?
Well, it's Around 0.1%.
We were told it was 3% initially, 2%. Are you saying now if it's 0.1, that's pretty much the same fatality rate as the regular flu, isn't it?
I think it's a bit higher, actually. I had said before in Sweden that this is like a severe influenza. I don't think that's completely true. It will be a bit more severe than influenza, but not maybe double, but not tenfold.
Professor, you've said the best policy, the correct policy would simply be to protect the old and the frail. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's the Swedish model has sort of two pillars. One is only use measures that are evidence-based, and there are two that are evidence-based. And one is washing hands is good. We've known that for 150 years since Semmelweis in Austria a long time ago. The other is social distancing. If you don't get too close to other people, they won't infect you. And the third may be trust people. People are not stupid. If you tell them what's good for them, they will do what you say. You don't need this soldiers in the street and police, and it's unnecessary.
This chap reckons that we've got about a 0.1% fatality. 0.1% of South African population is 60,000. Every year in South Africa from the normal influenza, 11,000 people die. And that isn't when everybody in the whole country gets infected. And that's a lower percentage. So we're getting a huge portion of the South African population every year who do get the flu. And 11,000 are dying. So with corona, if we assume 100%, every single person in the whole country gets the coronavirus, the maximum amount of people that we would expect to see die is 60,000. Let that sink in, and then listen to what the World Health Organization is referring or comparing this virus to. And not on one occasion, on more than one.
People who know their status can protect others. It's a little bit like in the HIV epidemic. Until people could understand my status, if I know I'm infected, I can protect others.
How ridiculous is that? Because HIV, until recently, had a 100% death rate.